So I want you to think about the absolute best hole-in-the-wall restaurant in your neighborhood. You know the exact kind of place I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, totally. Every neighborhood has one.
Right, so it doesn't have a flashy billboard. Maybe the neon sign in the window has a few letters burned out. But the people who live on that street, they know it's basically the center of the universe.
Yeah, it's like a closely guarded community secret.
Exactly. And the cooks in the back are experimenting with this like very specific spice blend, something bubbling away in a pot that is just so utterly unique to that specific community.
Mm-hmm.
And it is perfect. It belongs to them. But then, I mean, imagine a world-famous, multi-Michelin starred chef happens to just wander in on a Tuesday night.
Just completely by chance.
Right, and they take exactly one bite, their eyes go wide, and they immediately take that secret ingredient, bring it back to their global restaurant empire, and just put it on every menu from New York to Tokyo.
Wow. Yeah, that's a massive leap.
It is. Suddenly, everyone on the planet is trying to replicate that exact flavor, but they have absolutely no idea where it actually came from.
It's a staggering shift in scale when you really analyze it. I mean, you go from this intensely localized, almost protected community secret to a worldwide commodity practically overnight.
Mm-hmm.
The mechanism of how culture travels like that is like honestly one of the most fascinating dynamics in the modern world.
Exactly. And today we are going to be talking about the musical equivalent of that exact phenomenon. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here for this one.
We are unpacking some incredible source notes today from the AfroHouse Story project, specifically looking at their research on what they call the Amapiano explosion.
Right, the Amapiano explosion.
Yeah, so we're going to explore how this highly localized sound South African piano house transformed into a massive global movement.
Which is just a wild journey.
Yeah, it really is. But we aren't just going to look at the timeline. We are going to, pull apart its unique sonic blueprint, look at the brilliant architects who actually engineered it from the ground up, and figure out how that massive tipping point took it from local underground clubs to the global stage.
And what I really appreciate about these notes is that they don't just give us a historical summary.
Right.
They actually provide the raw technical specifications of the genre. They highlight the origins, the exact tempo, the key instrumentation, and of course, the mainstream catalyst.
Yeah, they really get into the weeds.
They do. But to truly understand a musical movement, we have to understand the mechanics. We have to look at how those specifications actually interact with the human body.
Okay, let's jump right in right there, starting with the physical reaction. Because before we can understand how this music took over the world, we really have to talk about what it actually does to you when you hit play.
Absolutely.
So, the source material defines Amapiano as a South African house subgenre. But the defining data point they highlight first is the tempo.
Right, the BPM.
Yeah, it sits in this very specific pocket, exactly 112 to 120 beats per minute. Now, to me, this feels incredibly deliberate.
So it's very deliberate.
Right, because if you think about the human resting heart rate, it's usually around, 60 to 100 beats per minute?
Yeah, right around that.
So 112 to 120 is just slightly elevated. It's like a brisk walk. It's a very relaxed pocket compared to the hyper-fast dance music we usually hear,
That physiological connection is spot on, and it is really the entire foundation of the genre. I mean, if we look at the broader landscape of electronic dance music.
Like the festival stuff.
Exactly, the kind of mainstream EDM you hear at massive festivals.
Yeah.
With the pyro and the laser shows. That music often pushes up into the 128, 130, or even like a 145 BPM range.
Which is just exhausting to even think about.
It is. At that speed, the music is a physical demand.
Yes.
It's completely frenetic. Biologically, a 140 BPM track elevates your heart rate and demands jumping. It demands a high-energy, almost exhausting physical output. But when you intentionally drop the tempo down to that 112 to 120 BPM range, the physical requirement entirely shifts.
I mean, you physically cannot jump to 112 BPM. It just feels awkward.
Precisely. You are jumping, you are swaying, you are grooving.
It's a totally different vibe.
It is a completely different neurological and physical engagement. It's an invitation to move with the music rather than just reacting to a relentless pounding kick drum.
Right.
And from a production standpoint, that slower tempo does something really crucial. It creates space.
Space for what?
Well, when a track breathes at 115 BPM, the silence between the beats becomes just as important as the beats themselves.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it creates this vast canvas where other, more complex musical elements can actually be heard and felt. I mean, if it were too fast, all the nuance we are about to talk about would just be completely swallowed up in the rush.
Okay, and speaking of that nuance, the notes highlight a very specific instrumental combination that fills up that space.
The signature sound.
Exactly. They say the defining characteristic is the combination of log drums and jazz piano.
Yes.
Now, when I first read this, my mind immediately went to fashion for some reason.
Fashion. Okay, I'm looking.
Yeah. Combining a log drum with jazz piano feels like putting together a brilliant, heavily contrasting outfit. Like, the jazz piano is that sophisticated, perfectly tailored tuxedo jacket.
Okay, I see where you're going.
It is elegant, it's complex, it has, decades of history and refinement behind it. But then you pair it with the log drum, which acts like a pair of rugged, heavy, street-ready work boots.
Right.
On paper, a tuxedo jacket and muddy work boots shouldn't make any sense together. But when someone pulls it off, it is the most striking, undeniable look in the room.
That is a fun image. But functionally, we need to look at what's actually happening under the hood here.
Okay, lay it on me.
Because this is where the reality of the genre really blows your mind. That log drum you're picturing, the rugged wooden acoustic instrument.
Yeah.
That's not what we are talking about here. In Amapiano, the log drum is actually a massive digital illusion.
Wait, it's not an actual drum?
No, not at all. This is one of the most brilliant technological adaptations in modern music.
Are you serious?
I am. The log drum in Amapiano is almost exclusively a synthesized bass line. It's often created using really accessible digital production software like FL Studio.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the South African youth who built this genre didn't go out into the woods and chop down trees.
Right.
They opened up digital synthesizer presets. They found a sound that mimicked the deep, hollow resonance of a traditional African wooden drum. And then they pitched it down and basically weaponized it into a heavy club-rattling sub-bass.
Oh, wow. So they took a traditional percussive concept, but executed it with modern, accessible software.
Exactly.
That completely changes how I hear it. I mean, that is genius.
It really is. And returning to your tuxedo and work boots analogy, the reason it works isn't just stylistic contrast. It's a masterclass in what producers call frequency real estate.
Frequency real estate. Okay, break that down for me.
So think of a song as a house with different floors. You only have so much room in this house.
Okay.
If everyone is hanging out on the same floor, it just sounds cluttered and muddy.
Yeah.
The genius of Amapiano is how perfectly it divides those floors.
So who is on what floor?
Well, the jazz piano brings incredible melodic complexity. It uses these rich 7th and 9th chords, employing a lot of tension and release.
Right.
Sonically, those jazz chords live entirely on the top floor. They occupy the high and mid-range frequencies. They have this airy, intellectual quality that just kind of floats above the rhythm.
Leaving the basement completely empty.
Exactly. The jazz piano takes the top floor, leaving the basement wide open, and into that empty basement, they dropped this massive, synthesized, digital log drum.
Wow.
Because the tempo is slow and the middle frequencies are relatively clear, that sub bass has all the room in the world to just hit you right in the chest.
That makes perfect sense.
The jazz piano targets the mind and the emotions, while the digital log drum bypasses all of that and basically just dictates the groove directly to your hips.
It seems to me this worked because it creates the ultimate lounge to club crossover.
Oh, absolutely.
Like at 115 BPM with those airy jazz chords, I can easily just nod my head to it while sitting in a coffee shop or a lounge.
Right. It's very chill.
But if you take that exact same track and crank the volume at 2 a.m. in a basement club, that synthesized sub bass takes over and suddenly the entire room is dancing. The versatility is just built right into its DNA.
And that versatility is exactly why it survived. House music is an incredibly crowded space.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, it has been iterating for decades across Chicago, Detroit, London, Berlin, and of course, all across the African continent. To stand out, to create a new subgenre that actually gains traction and doesn't just fade away after one summer, you need a unique sonic fingerprint.
You have to offer something new.
Exactly. That perfectly engineered frequency balance the mind-engaging jazz chords over the body-moving digital sub-bass at a relaxed tempo that is an undeniable signature.
But you don't just get that perfect frequency balance by accident,
No, you definitely don't.
You don't just wake up one day and find that a synthesized bass preset has naturally fused itself with a complex jazz chord progression at 115 BPM.
Right. The software doesn't mix itself.
It requires humans. It requires deliberate builders to actually figure out that architecture. And that leads us to the key figures driving this. The AfroHouse story notes specifically highlight two names here, Kabza De Small and DJ Maphorisa.
Yes, Kabza De Small and DJ Maphorisa are really the central figures highlighted here. They're the ones truly synonymous with birthing and refining this movement.
Now, here is where I actually want to push back a little bit on the source material itself, or, well, at least the terminology they use.
Whoa, wait, what part?
The notes refer to this phenomenon as the Amapiano explosion.
Right. The explode.
And I get it. Explosion is a great buzzword. It conveys this sudden, massive popularity.
It's very dramatic.
But I feel like the word explosion kind of strips away the agency of the creators.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Right, because it makes it sound like an overnight accident. Like someone just tripped in the studio, knocked a keyboard over, accidentally hit the log drum preset, and boom, a genre was born.
Yeah, like it was just spontaneous combustion.
Exactly. But looking at the intentionality of the sound we just discussed, I think we need to frame Kabza De Small and DJ Maphorisa not just as lucky participants in an explosion, but as deliberate, rigorous architects.
I think that is a vital distinction to make, honestly. There is often a tendency in mainstream narratives, particularly when discussing cultural movements emerging from the global south, to view these genres as purely spontaneous or organically accidental.
Yes, like they just sprouted from the earth.
Right. And it minimizes the rigorous, highly technical work that goes into them. Calling them architects really is the only accurate way to describe it.
An architect doesn't just throw bricks on the ground.
No.
They draft blueprints, they test materials to see how much weight they can hold. They figured out how to stitch the jazz piano and the digital bass together without the whole track basically just falling apart.
And that testing phase you mentioned is crucial. Kabza De Small and DJ Maphorisa didn't just stumble onto a sound in a vacuum. They synthesized incredibly diverse influences.
Like what kind of influences?
Well, they took elements from earlier South African genres, things like Soweto and Deep House, and they experimented with dropping the BPMs lower and lower in local clubs just to see how the crowds would react.
So they were actively experimenting.
Oh, heavily. And they leveraged the accessibility of digital workstations like FL Studio to iterate rapidly. I mean, they could make a beat in the afternoon, play it at a party that night, watch how the crowd swayed to that 115 BPM tempo, and then go back to the studio the next day to tweak the frequencies.
Wow. So they were running real-time beta tests on the dance floor.
Exactly. It was iterative design. And what's fascinating here is how vital identifiable pioneers are to a genre's survival.
Why is that?
Because when a new sound is bubbling up, having recognizable architects gives the genre an identity. It gives fans a focal point.
Right, a face to the name.
Yeah, and more importantly, it gives the next generation of young producers a standard. They now have a blueprint to either emulate or rebel against.
That makes a lot of sense.
It provides the foundation that allows a localized South African scene to transition from scattered underground parties into a structured, globally recognizable musical language.
What grounds the movement? It proves that this isn't just a fleeting trend or a TikTok novelty sound. It is a meticulously crafted musical framework.
Exactly.
But having those brilliant architects building beautiful sonic structures in South Africa is one thing. Reaching the ears of listeners all over the entire planet requires a massive, massive bridge.
The biggest bridge possible.
Right. How does a hyper-local scene engineered by local architects using FL Studio actually make that global leap?
That is the million-dollar question.
And that brings us to the final fascinating point in our source notes, the catalyst. The notes explicitly state the turning point was Drake sampling the sound, which turned it into a certified global phenomena.
Ah, the Drake effect. The transition from the local underground to the global mainstream. It is the ultimate threshold for any modern genre, and it completely rewrites the rules of distribution.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, and I want you to think about the mechanics of modern pop culture for a second here.
Okay.
Drake is undeniably one of the most recognized voices and cultural forces on the planet, right? So when an artist of that magnitude takes a niche regional sound from South Africa and weaves it into his own mainstream production, what is actually happening mechanically?
What do you mean?
Does a cosign or a sample from someone like Drake actually validate the genre, or does it simply introduce it to a completely new algorithmic demographic?
Oh, it absolutely does not validate the genre in terms of quality.
Right. Because the quality was already there.
Exactly. The music was already structurally perfect.
Well,
Kabza De Small and DJ Maphorisa had already perfected the frequency balance and the groove. What a mainstream sample does is drastically alter the distribution mechanics. It is the ultimate cultural passport.
A cultural passport. I like that. Let me try another analogy here.
Go for it.
It's like there is this vibrant, incredible, local South African block party going on. The music is perfect. The groove is infectious, but you can only hear it if you happen to live on that specific block.
Right.
Drake sampling it doesn't change the music being played at the party. It's more like someone dropping a massive global loudspeaker right in the middle of that block.
Yes.
Suddenly, the entire world can hear the 112 BPM groove. They can hear the digital log drum rattling their car windows.
That is exactly how the modern music algorithm works. I mean, before that sample, if a listener in Toronto or Tokyo or London wanted to hear Amapiano, they had to actively seek it out.
They had to put in the work.
Right. They had to know what to search for, they had to bypass their local radio gatekeepers, and they basically had to step outside their algorithmic bubble.
Which, let's be honest, most casual listeners just don't do.
They really don't. But when a megastar samples that distinct sound and places it on a highly anticipated pop album, the algorithm forcefully integrates that South African rhythm into mainstream global playlists.
The gatekeepers are just instantly bypassed.
Instantly. Millions of listeners suddenly have that synthesized log drum downloaded directly into their personal libraries overnight. The sample acts as the vehicle that turns local innovation into the global phenomenon mentioned in our source material.
It is the ultimate delivery mechanism. It basically takes the secret ingredient from that neighborhood restaurant we talked about at the very beginning.
Yeah, full circle.
And forcibly injects it into the menu at the biggest franchise in the world.
And this raises a crucial point about how you, as a listener, consume culture. The Drake effect, as we might call it, isn't just about the success of one pop song.
What is it about, then?
It is about opening a door. Once that global loudspeaker broadcasts the sound, it invites the curious listener to walk backwards through the door, to look at the liner notes, to figure out where that incredible bass sound came from, right, and hopefully to discover the original architects who built the foundation in the first place.
Okay, let's zoom out and pull all these threads together because we have covered some serious ground today.
We really have.
We started this deep dive with a very specific set of notes from the AfroHouse Story project, looking at the mechanics of the Amapiano movement. We unpacked the anatomy of that sound.
The BPM.
Right. How dropping the tempo to a relaxed, swaying 112 to 120 BPM physically changes how a crowd moves. We explored the genius of frequency real estate.
The house with the different floors.
Exactly. That brilliant contrasting tension between the sophisticated, airy high notes of the jazz piano and the rugged digital sub-bass of the FL Studio log drum preset.
We also reframe the narrative, looking past the dismissive idea of a spontaneous explosion to recognize the deliberate, brilliant engineering of the genre's architects.
Kabza De Small and DJ Mafariza.
Yes. Producers who didn't stumble into success, but who rigorously beta tested and built a sonic blueprint that gave the movement its permanent identity.
And finally, we examined the mechanics of the global leap. How a localized masterpiece gets broadcast to the algorithm through the cultural passport of a massive mainstream sample.
Bypassing regional gatekeepers entirely.
Bypassing them completely and turning a South African club sound into a certified global phenomenon.
It really is a masterclass in how accessible digital tools and deep cultural roots can combine to travel across the modern world.
Absolutely. And so here is the real takeaway for you today. The tangible value in understanding all of this.
Yeah. What's the bottom line?
The next time you have your headphones on, or the next time you are out somewhere and a massive mainstream pop track comes on, I want you to listen closely.
Pay attention to the beat.
When you feel that slightly slower, relaxed groove, and you suddenly feel that deep, resonant digital thump of a log drum sitting perfectly underneath some airy jazz chords, you are going to know exactly what you were listening to.
It won't just be background noise anymore.
Right. You aren't just hearing a beat. You are hearing the invisible history hiding behind that track. You are hearing the architecture of South African piano house.
You now possess the context to hear the layers, to appreciate not just the mainstream rapper, but the rich, innovative regional history and the specific technological choices that made that song possible in the first place.
Exactly. It completely changes how you hear the world around you. So as we wrap up our conversation today, I want to leave you with one final, entirely different thought to mull over.
Okay, what is it?
We talked a lot today about that global loudspeaker. The reality that it takes a massive pop star sampling a localized sound to bring it to millions of global listeners.
Right, the passport.
But it begs a massive question about the modern music industry. When a global superstar takes a hyper-local sound and suddenly turns it into a worldwide chart-topping phenomenon,
Yeah.
who actually owns that culture?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy question.
Right. Does the original local community that spent years beta testing and perfecting that sound actually reap the financial rewards and the industry power? Or does the megastar walk away with all the profit and the credit?
Yeah.
When culture goes global, who truly gets paid for the secret ingredient?
It's arguably the most complicated question in the globalization of art, and it's one every listener should be asking when they look at the top of the charts.
Keep your ears open and always check the liner notes.